endless winter. Deep in the legendary forest, where trees whisper and ancient spirits watch, winter began to show its face, a face the forest had never known before. Snow fell without ceasing, covering everything in a silent white blanket. The cold was unlike any ordinary winter. It had a strange cruelty. The sun's rays disappeared, rivers froze, and frost hovered over birds' nests. In the heart of this forest, Leo, the little mythical creature, emerged from his burrow made of pine branches. His white fur, dotted with star maps, crunched against the snow. Around Leo were his friends: Rudy, the inventive squirrel; Fleen, the kind hedgehog; Sipho, the wise rabbit; and Misha, the dreamy fox. They all felt that something terrible had happened, and that the forest had become a strange, gloomy world. Leo stood among them and said in a quiet voice, "There is a secret behind this long winter. We must discover it, not just for ourselves, but for all the spirits of the forest."
The friends set out on an exploration journey through the deep snow. Along the way, they encountered a falcon that had lost its ability to fly due to the extreme cold, and a young deer that spoke only one sentence: "The Ice Queen has awakened from her long sleep." Silence and heaviness hung over their hearts for a moment, but the wise Sifu directed them toward a distant cave deep in the heart of the forest, where a wise old man named Duran, the elephant who knows the secrets of the ages, lived. In the cave, they found Duran the elephant sitting before a small fire, staring at them with his deep eyes like an ancient well. Liu saw an ancient sadness in Duran's eyes, as if he had experienced this winter before. Duran said, "The Ice Queen's door in the Palace of Eternal Snow has opened. Winter's curse was imposed on the forest when her wrath was awakened. Only those with a warm heart can save the forest, breaking the wall of eternal frost."
"How do we get to the Ice Queen's palace?" Rudy asked. "Only those with true courage can approach," Doran replied. "Only those who can gather shards of warmth from the hearts of the forest's inhabitants can do so. Each shard illumines the path and weakens the curse's power." Many things crossed Leo's mind. He remembered his mother's embrace as a child and his laughter with his friends. He felt a strange energy gathering in his chest, and he decided to lead his team on the most difficult task yet. They all set off through the forest, gathering shards of warmth. A little child smiled for his grandfather. The song of a lone bird perched on a dry branch. A firelight that Sifu lit to cook breakfast for his friends that morning. And a tear of gratitude from a deer Leo had met when he rescued it from a snow trap. With each shard they gathered, they noticed the air clearing and the colors slowly returning despite the frost still lingering in the surrounding areas.
Leo and his companions finally approached the Palace of Eternal Snow. It was built of crystal pillars that shimmered in the moonlight like weapons of light. The Ice Queen saw the friends and was furious.
She unleashed a storm of ice, trapping them in a circle they could not penetrate. But Leo did not allow fear to settle in his heart. He walked up to the queen and asked, "Why did you create this eternal winter? Don't you want the forest to live?" The queen looked at him with crystal eyes and said, "I have been alone for thousands of years. Everyone has forgotten me, and the candles of friendship have been extinguished in the hearts of the forest's inhabitants. Coldness has become my only refuge." Misha the fox said tenderly, "A cold heart is not a blessing. Let us share the warmth of love with you and together emerge from this ice." The queen was silent for a few moments, during which she felt a tremor she had never known in her life. The warmth of her friend's conversation seeped into her heart, as if those words had melted the ice surrounding her soul.
Breaking the curse wasn't easy. The queen asked the friends to confront their old memories and gather the last shred of warmth from deep within. Each entered their own little world. Rudy entered his childhood, where he felt less intelligent than the other squirrels. He faced his fear and learned that his courage was not measured solely by his intelligence, but by his belief in himself. Misha traveled through the moments of loneliness after losing her mother. She cried at first, but she found her friend's embrace to be a new window of hope. Flynn faced the memories of being overlooked because of his thorns. He realized that love requires courage and began to see the beauty of his soul transcending the boundaries of the body. As for Leo, he reminisced about the loss of his mother. He cried in front of everyone, but he didn't hide his tears, and everyone felt the warmth flowing from his heart into theirs. When everyone emerged from those memories, they carried shreds of warmth as bright as the sun. They drew her close to the heart of the Ice Queen and gave her a shard of warmth greater than their own, and the ice circles melted and winter receded. Everyone left the Queen's palace, accompanied by Duran, the wise elephant who finally smiled after years of waiting. The sun's rays began to break through the clouds, and the snow melted from the edges of the forest. Birds chirped, and voices rose from all directions. The Ice Queen grew calmer, wearing a garment of soft light instead of a crystal cloak. Her palace became a place of peace, where the forest dwellers gathered in every season to share stories and laughter. Everyone learned that warmth comes not only from the sun's rays, but from hearts that are unafraid to communicate love and compassion. The Secret of the Lost City. On a quiet autumn evening, 4 friends gathered in Sami's attic, where they spent their time telling stories and sharing dreams. Sami, the smart boy with the round glasses, loved solving puzzles and searching for hidden secrets. Laila, on the other hand, was brave and fearless, always seeking new adventures. Yusuf, the thin, shaggy-haired boy, loved old books and maps, spending hours reading myths and stories. Finally, Hind, the dreamy girl who sees the world with the brush of an artist, capturing the smallest details and drawing them in her blue notebook. That night,
As they were arranging some old boxes, Hin suddenly shouted, "Look, what is this strange box? I've never seen it here before." The friends gathered around the dusty wooden box, staring at it in amazement. The box was decorated with strange engravings, and on its lid was a rusty lock. Sami tried to open it but couldn't. Yusuf noticed a small key hanging from a string tucked into the corner of the box. He turned the key carefully, and the lock slowly opened, making a faint sound, as if groaning from the passage of years. They opened the box, and inside was an old map drawn on thin leather, dotted with intertwined lines and mysterious symbols. In a corner of the map was written in faint script, "Whoever finds this map will discover the secret of the lost underground city, where light reaches only those who deserve it." The friends studied the map for a long time, and Yusuf began to analyze the symbols. "Look at this mark. It resembles an abandoned garden on the outskirts of the city, and these lines point to a tunnel or a secret passageway," Layla said excitedly. "What are we waiting for? Let's discover this secret. Maybe we'll find a great treasure or a legendary city." Hind laughed and said, "Or maybe we'll meet strange creatures no one has ever seen before." The friends agreed to begin their adventure the next morning. They spent the night packing their bags, flashlights, ropes, food and water, Hind's notebook and pens, and a magnifying glass that Yusuf had brought.
With the first rays of dawn, the friends set off toward the deserted garden. The place was eerie, with tree branches dangling like arms searching for something lost. In the center of the garden stood a huge stone statue of a lion, covered in moss and grass. Sami inspected the statue. "There's an inscription here, but the moss is covering it. Hind, do you have a small brush?" Hind took a paintbrush from her bag and began gently removing the moss. An inscription appeared that read, "Whoever wants to enter, let them look for the heart in the eyes of the lion." Yusuf studied the statue's eyes and noticed a small hole in one of them. Sami carefully inserted his finger, and they heard a faint click. Then a secret door opened at the statue's base. "Come on, let's go down," Lila said excitedly. The friends descended a long stone staircase that led them deep into the earth. It was cold, and the darkness increased the deeper they went. They lit their flashlights and walked through a narrow tunnel whose walls were decorated with drawings of animals and people dancing around a large fire. "These drawings resemble an ancient civilization I read about in a book," Yusuf said. "They say it suddenly disappeared hundreds of years ago." They reached a massive stone door, inscribed with a riddle and written in a strange language. Yusuf translated some of it. "Without your cooperation, the doors will not open. Put your hands together and repeat, 'We are one.'" They hesitated for a moment, then clasped their hands and repeated the phrase. Suddenly, the door opened slowly, and a blast of cold air rushed towards them. The friends entered a spacious hall, illuminated by glowing blue stones. In the center of the hall was a deep pool of water, with carvings of strange animals on its walls. They approached the pool, and suddenly a giant turtle appeared, speaking in a calm voice. "Welcome, you who have come in search of the lost city. You will not reach it unless you pass 3 tests: intelligence, courage, and a pure heart." Sami said, "We're ready.
What's the first test? The turtle pointed to a table with stones of various colors and shapes. Arrange these stones according to the sequence shown on the walls. If you make a mistake, the doors will close and you won't be able to leave. The friends began examining the inscriptions and discovered that each stone had a symbol that was repeated in the drawings. They all worked together. Hind noticed that the colors matched the colors of the birds in one of the paintings, and Yusuf linked the symbols to a myth he had read. After several attempts, they succeeded in arranging the stones correctly, and they heard the sound of the next door opening.
You've proven your intelligence. Now for the next test. At the end of the corridor, they found a large golden chest, and next to it, a small bird caught in a spider's web. A hidden voice said, "You must choose. Take the treasure or save the bird." The friends hesitated a little, but Hind quickly moved forward and freed the bird from the web. The bird flew happily around them, then disappeared into a secret passage that suddenly opened in the wall. "You have chosen pure heart over greed," said the turtle. "Now you may enter the lost city." The friends entered through the secret passageway and found themselves standing before a vast underground city. Its buildings made of crystal, illuminated by colorful stones that glittered like the stars at night. In the courtyards were strange creatures, dwarves, rare birds, and animals never seen before. They were greeted by the city's leader, an elderly man with a white beard and shining eyes. The leader said, "Welcome to the City of Light. This city has only been revealed to those who deserve it, because its inhabitants believe that cooperation and tolerance are the secret to life. For centuries, we have hidden our city from the greedy and the selfish, and now you have restored our hope." The friends spent a full day among the city's inhabitants, learning how to live in peace and cooperate in everything. They visited the children's schools, where everyone learned drawing, music, and agriculture. Hind visited the artist's workshop and painted a large picture on one of the city's walls. Sammy participated in solving an ancient riddle with the city's wise men. As for Layla and Yusuf, they learned how to grow rare plants and care for strange animals. In the evening, the city's inhabitants gathered around a large fire and began singing and dancing. The leader presented the friends with a luminous crystal, saying, "This crystal carries the light of our city. Carry it with you and spread light in your hearts and the hearts of those around you." The friends bid farewell to the city's inhabitants and returned through the paths to the surface. When they emerged from the deserted garden, dawn was beginning to break. They felt that something had changed inside them, that they were no longer the same. They gathered with their families and friends and recounted their amazing adventure. Sami said, "We learned that the secret of the lost city lies not in the treasure or the secrets, but in the power of friendship, tolerance, and cooperation."
Layla said, "Courage isn't in facing danger alone, but in helping each other." Yusuf said, "True knowledge is in learning from others and sharing what we know." Hind said, "True beauty is in shining a light in the hearts of everyone we meet." Since that day, the four friends have become role models in their city, spreading love and tolerance and teaching everyone that cooperation is the greatest treasure a person can find.
The world of Pandora. Deep in space, where stars twinkle amidst gas clouds, lies the planet Pandora.
home to an ancient civilization and blue-skinned creatures known as the Navi. This world is alive with life, from dense forests filled with giant plants to shimmering oceans that hold profound secrets. Here, nature is not just a spectacle, but a living soul in harmony with its inhabitants. In a state-of-the-art space hospital on Earth, Jake Sully, a young, wheelchair-bound soldier in his 30s, is preparing for an unprecedented experience in the Avatar program. His actual body is in tatters after a horrific accident, but his spirit has not lost hope. With fierce determination, he prepares for a journey that could change the course of his life forever. Jake is sent to a research center aboard a massive ship bound for Pandora. He is fused with a genetically modified Navi body accompanied by a team of medical scientists led by Dr. Grace Augustine. After several days of recovery, he awakens in his new body, immersed in a strange environment with stunning views of giant trees and the sounds of exotic wildlife, where he begins a journey of adaptation and learning. Jake sets out to explore the Navi villages. Where he meets Neteri, a young warrior from their tribe, who displays a mixture of wariness and curiosity toward his strange intruder. Jake begins training. Not only in martial arts and riding Pandora's wild creatures, but also in understanding the spiritual bonds that bind the Navi to their land. A friendship slowly grows between them. Gradually transforming Jake from a strange soldier into a part of the community. While exploring a deep forest, Jake discovers a massive mine of the precious metal unobtainium beneath a sacred tree, the heart of Pandora.
He attempts to warn his tribe and the local leaders of the dangers of resource depletion, but they cling to their deep belief in protecting the land at all costs. A delicate balance is struck between preserving tradition and confronting the ruthless human population. Tensions are rising between human forces and indigenous tribes, and frequent clashes occur. Neytiri and Jake lead an alliance of tribes to confront the repeated encroachments, using all their natural skills and wisdom. The war is not simply a battle of weapons, but a struggle to establish a balance between technology and the environment. The Navi forces gather for a fateful confrontation near the sacred tree, amidst the natural beauty and clouds that embrace the skies of Pandora. The battle tells a story of courage and resilience, punctuated by heroic moments for Jake and Neytiri, each finding unexpected strength within themselves. Human forces are forced to retreat, while the will of life and nature triumph. With the battle over, the people of Pandora begin to rebuild, guided by Jake and Neytiri, who have become symbols of harmony and balance. Life pulses again through the land, water, and plants, and a new chapter of peace and coexistence between humans and nature opens. A story to be told for future generations as a reminder of the wisdom and true strength in protecting what matters. Jake decides to fully belong to the Navi world, abandoning his human body and committing himself to protecting the future planet Pandora. The ancient spirit of the planet is reclaimed through its people. And their story through time remains an eternal journey of love, sacrifice, and a return to the untouchable natural roots.
Earlier than usual, the sun rose over a sky tinged with strange colors, like an unfinished work of art. The sky wasn't as blue as usual. Instead, it was a jumble of blue and gray. This difference was reflected in everything below, starting with the birds, which no longer soared in the sky. Instead, they began swimming in the pools of water that had been calm only the day before, as if they had transformed into rivers flowing through the air. The fish, which had been swimming leisurely in the pools, lifted their small wings to soar lightly through the forest, astonishing all who saw them. The old woman, with her well-known wisdom, held her glowing cane, emitting green and gold lights, and examined the unfolding events with eyes filled with anxiety and hope. The moving trees, which usually stood still, bewildering the forest inhabitants with their slow dances, now moved their roots away from the ground, as if performing a very strange dance. The mischievous little monkey was hopping from branch to branch, observing the chaos with eyes sparkling with hidden curiosity and wonder, while the cheerful raccoon wrapped his distinctive scarf around his neck, smiling optimistically, dismissing all fear, as if to say, "Perhaps in this chaos lies the beginning of an unprecedented adventure." Everything was a warning bell announcing the beginning of a strange time the jungle had never known before. In a wide plain in the heart of the forest, all the creatures of the forest gathered in a state of anticipation and alertness. They gathered under a huge canopy of golden leaves, where the sounds were eerie and the breeze carried a spectrum of unfamiliar whispers. The wise owl flapped its wings confidently, its bright gaze bearing years of experience and wisdom, gazing down at everyone. Meanwhile, the playful red panda stood trying to spread a spirit of optimism and joy among everyone with a large childlike smile, as if trying to relieve the pressure that filled the air.
The old lady stood among the attendees, her glowing cane raised, emitting a faint light that gathered attention and encouraged hearts. She began speaking in a calm, steady tone, explaining that this chaos was not the result of chance, but rather a disruption of the natural laws that govern the forest, and that it was time for collective action to restore order. Everyone listened intently and focused, realizing that their task would not be easy, and that trust in each other would be the foundation of their success. The cheerful raccoon charged forward, leading the group with enthusiasm and confidence, followed by the lively and curious little monkey and the red panda, who quietly and hopefully encouraged everyone. The old woman walked behind them, her strength supported by the glowing crystal in her cane, which sent warm light through the shifting darkness of the trees. Shadows played around them, shifting and shifting, as if the forest itself were testing their resolve. The ground they walked on changed. Narrow paths suddenly widened, others widened and then narrowed, as if time were testing their ability to adapt and adjust. But the figures didn't slow down or panic. On the contrary, their eyes shone with an unquenchable resolve, supporting one another. The moving trees swayed in encouraging gestures, emitting subtle notes and dancing shadows, expressing their support.
The friends reached a strange area in the middle of the forest, where light gathered between the tangled trees, forming a vast lake of glowing colors. Reflections of light and mystery danced on the surface below. There, shadows began to move slowly, scattering the dark spaces like otherworldly creatures, their eyes brimming with defiance and wonder. The mischievous monkey moved lightly and gracefully among the branches, avoiding the shadow's twisting arms, making himself a swift, difficult target to catch. Meanwhile, the red panda hopped cautiously, filling the space with his steady energy and unfailing spirit. The intelligent raccoon used his slow, measured movements to avoid the traps set by the shadows. He moved cautiously through the cracked ground between the trees, meditating and trying to find a safe way through this mysterious blackness. The old woman, poor and wise in her years,
whispered soothing incantations to protect her companions, who looked at her with trusting eyes. Slowly, the crystal in her wand began to radiate a blue light, penetrating the shadows, trying to return her to her natural place, sometimes glowing and sometimes fading, as if the struggle oscillated between hope and danger. After crossing the shadows with grace and love, they all headed toward the ancient center of the forest, where the heart of nature truly beats. The wise owl turned to them and said in a deep, modern voice, "They have realized that true balance lies not only in magical powers or in the crystal. It lies in your hearts, in the trust you place in one another, in patience and in cooperation." They all gathered in a circle, their hands tightly clasped, their fingers gently touching the soft leaves the old woman had carefully plucked. They began sending the energy of hope and love to one another, and the crystal began to respond. The colors of the light changed and grew brighter until it engulfed the entire forest. The birds returned to the sky, singing melodies in harmony with the forest breeze. The fish glided serenely in its rejuvenated waters. Nature returned to its profound balance. But everyone learned an unforgettable lesson, that life is not just about immutable laws and rules, but about trust, patience, and love.
The Blue Spirit. Deep in the azure sea, where coral reefs of vibrant colors meet, was born Tipla, a tiny fish with fins studded with gold threads. Despite her small size, she differed from other fish in her courage and insatiable curiosity. She moved among the coral reefs, exploring every nook and cranny, enjoying every corner of the vibrant kingdom of the depths. As night enveloped the sea in its stillness, a deep roaring sound echoed, and a terrifying black whirlpool suddenly appeared in Tipla's habitat. The small fish fled into hiding. But Tibla cautiously approached the center of the whirlpool, where a small octopus named Corallo was trapped among the rocks. When she tried to rescue him, she sensed that the whirlpool was not natural, but a threat from an unknown force seeking to wreak havoc in the depths of the sea. Tepla and Corallo decided to escape together through dark tunnels shrouded in mystery, between sharp rocks and dim rays of light guiding their way. In the terror and silence, they learned to rely on each other and exchanged their life stories. Suddenly, they came across a giant crab named Gran Wab, who guarded an ancient underwater city. Trusting their wisdom, he helped them and gave them a golden key to the Gate of Wisdom. They reached a massive portal made of shimmering coral, where they struggled to test their confidence and resolve. They summoned the strangeness around them through puzzles that required deep thinking and cooperation skills. They harnessed Corallo's quick-witted intelligence and Tebla's bold determination to solve the puzzles and open the way for a new phase of adventure. Suddenly, the kingdom's waters were invaded by a group of robot hunters, advanced robots searching for a sea gem that would grant them immense energy. Fear began to spread, and sea creatures began to lose their luster and color. Tepla and her allies tried to warn the greater leaders, but they refused to believe them, causing the situation to escalate into a gradual loss.
Tepla didn't give up, and determination flowed through her veins. She gathered a team of underdogs, a shy jellyfish named Lumi, the wise starfish Staria, and the speedy seahorse Speedy. Together, they formed a small alliance to lead the resistance. They began planning to use the marine environment to their advantage, utilizing every available energy and tool. In a dense coral maze, they carried out a clever ambush against the robotic hunters. Tepla used her courage to attack one of the machines, risking her life to save Lumi. Corallo used his skill in the dark to sweep away the enemy equipment, while Granwab used his claws to protect the young turtles. The power of courage and cooperation led the counterattack, confusing the hunters and weakening their grip. Amidst the battle tactics, the black whirlpool that caused all the destruction collapsed. The sea experienced a stunning revival, with the return of vibrant colors and rapidly sprouting coral plants. Marine creatures celebrated victory amidst a shimmering bioluminescence. Coral life grew more beautiful and joyful, and the return of peace was evident in every wave. The mythical creature Marina, the ancient mermaid, appeared as a symbol of wisdom and hope. She honored the Pala and her companions, proclaiming that courage and cooperation are the true spirits of the deep. She awarded them the Order of Warriors and enjoined them to protect the sea from all who threaten its peace. She sent an important message. Victory lies not in strength and size, but in the strength of spirit and friends. After their victory, the heroes began wisely organizing their society, making plans to confront any future threats. Tepla, Corallo, and Graham became role models. Their story of heroism spread among the sea creatures, inspiring all who live in the depths of the Sapphire, where life is full of adventures worth fighting for. The Dragon and the Lost World. In a mythical age, the Earth was not as it is today. There were hidden valleys between the mountains, magical kingdoms seen only in dreams, and dragons soaring freely among the clouds. In one of these hidden valleys, the morning sun glided over the shell of a huge golden egg hidden among the tall grasses. With the first ray of light, the egg cracked open,
and a young dragon emerged, whom they named Azir. Azir was unlike any other dragon. His tiny body was covered in scales that shimmered like pearls of dawn, and in his eyes glistened with endless questions. He wanted to know everything, and the first thing he looked at was his wings, where he found ancient inscriptions whose meanings he did not understand. Azir grew up in the arms of his kind mother and his strong father. Dragons had their own traditions of teaching their offspring how to fire, how to protect their lair under tall trees, and how to catch the breeze atop the mountains. But with all this love and warmth, Azir never felt a sense of complete belonging. He always felt he belonged to something larger than the valley, and that the questions of his wings awaited answers far beyond the horizon. One night, enveloped in silence and its hills trembling under the moonlight, Azir had a dream unlike any he'd ever dreamt. He saw a world of pale colors, dry, dying trees, and creatures fleeing from a deep, black shadow creeping over the ground. Azir felt a fear he'd never known before, and in the darkness, he heard a soft, thunderous voice say to him, "Azir, you are the last beacon of hope for a lost world. The lost world needs you. Go and bring back its light." He woke up in a panic, his heart pounding and a faint flame escaping his mouth, leaving a bright spot on the stone. He tried to tell his father what he saw, and he gathered his father and mother for a long session, but the answers were cryptic and concealed many secrets. In a moment of courage, Azir decided to begin his journey and search for the lost world he had dreamed of, and whether his destiny was tied to that dark, forgotten world. Azir packed a few belongings into a small bundle attached to the back of his wing and bid his parents farewell with tears and a long hug. His mother said to him quietly, "My dear son, your destiny is greater than to remain here. You will learn to search, to confront, and to love. Search for the answers in the inscriptions. We are part of a story greater than we can imagine." Azir flew away with his small wings early in the morning, his family's farewell ringing in his heart. For the first time, he felt the wind carrying him into the unknown, but inside there was a warmth from the dream, and a seed of courage began to grow. On the way through the mountains and rivers, Azir faced the danger of strong winds and strange birds of prey. One stormy day, however, he encountered a strange creature, Numa. It was a giant butterfly with translucent wings that shimmered in all the colors of the rainbow, emitting a warm aura around it. It was stuck on a high branch, moaning softly. Azir landed carefully and used a small torch to free the branch. Numa thanked him softly, saying, "Thank you, friend. You carry a light within you that has yet to shine. I have something I can help you with. Stay with me, and I will guide you." Numa became the first friend on Azir's journey, a kindred spirit for all his fears. She taught him how to control his flames, how to breathe deeply to make the flames emanate as strong or as quiet as he needed, and how to listen to the whispers of the forest and the secrets of the wind. As their journey continued, they passed through dense forests and sluggish valleys until they encountered a rare bird with brilliant blue feathers capable of seeing light in the pitch-black darkness. Mizar quickly joined the team, serving as a guide through the darkest nights. Then they encountered a human girl called Siren, daughter of a moon spirit who could communicate with spirits and hear messages from the river and stones. Although this seemed strange to Azir, Siren's presence became essential to discovering that the world was larger, deeper, and more mysterious than he had imagined. Each member of this integrated team brought Azir knowledge, strength, and hope to unlock the secret of the inscriptions and cross over to the lost world.
Months and years passed, and throughout these events, Azir grew and matured. At first he was small, vulnerable to the greater forces he faced. But with every ordeal and every challenge, his muscles strengthened, his wings grew stronger, and his eyes sparkled. He learned with Numa that fire wasn't just for destruction, but for rebirth and warmth. And with Siren, he learned how to balance his emotions and his flame instincts. He saw himself transforming from a child clinging to fear into a massive, tough warrior, capable of emitting a mighty flame that would burn away the darkness and illuminate the path. The dream was the beginning of a new era of his maturity. Every time doubts swept through his heart, he would hear his mother's voice echo in the distance. You are greater than your fears. When you grow and believe in your power, the world can be transformed by your hands. Along their way, signs began to appear that the lost world was not far away. Half-dead plants, stagnant streams, a sky that had lost its color. Thick black clouds signaled their approach to the source of the darkness. The friends faced the shadow creatures, formless beings who attacked relentlessly. Azir used his fiery breath to his advantage, while around him the light of Numa dispersed the darkness. Mizar's voice warned them of every danger, while Siren whispered ancient words to bring back the lost souls. Each battle strengthened Azir's strength, brought him closer to the truth of his role, and revealed new meanings to the inscriptions on his wings. Eventually, they learned that the lost world was imprisoned under the control of Malgor, a massive being of darkness who had crossed from another world at the moment the Great Dam collapsed, swallowing up the light and gathering the fragments of life into the Valley of Darkness. Through a mysterious vision, Azir discovered that Malgor was the embodiment of an ancient fragment of dragonfire, oppressed and rejected for centuries, his hatred transformed into a dark energy that consumed the lost world. A conflict raged in Azir's mind over the meaning of good and evil. He no longer saw Malgor as merely an enemy, but as part of a greater tragedy related to the history of dragons and their mismanaged fire. Azir had to grow even more to confront Malgor. As they finally approached the borders of the doomed world, he endured a terrible ordeal. At the gate of oblivion, he nearly lost Noma in the spirit storm. But he unleashed his most powerful fire and saved her.
Only then did his body suddenly grow, and the ecstasy of flame erupted from his chest and heart. He grew exponentially, his wings as wide as the valley's horizon, his voice like thunder. He was no longer a young dragon, but now a leader capable of setting the sky ablaze and calling out to all the oppressed, "I have returned, and this light belongs to us all." Azir stood before the gates of the dark world with Numa, Mizar, and Seren at his side. Malgar's eyes burned darkly, his voice as cold as a deadly winter wind. The fight began, and Azir used his great fire and the powers he had gained from his journey. His wings beat with all their might, his breath ignited the mist. And his friend Mizar guided him toward weak points. Numa radiated light around them, drawing the dark flames from the earth. And Seren called upon the ancient spirits to stand by their side. With each wave of fire, each ray, a portion of the wall of darkness crumbled. But the defining moment came when Azir and Malgor met, and they both understood that the solution lay not in total destruction, but in balance, transforming hatred into life force. Azir shouted to Malgor, "Fire is not for darkness, but for light. Sin is not eternal. Restore the light." A great spark erupted, and the darkness gradually turned to a warm light that flooded the land, and life returned to the trees and rivers. As the sun rose on the new day, the lost world was coming back to life. Birds sang, flowers bloomed, and the earth once again emitted waves of warmth, teeming with life. The creatures stood watching Azir cast off his cloak of smallness and fear and donned the robes of hope and courage. Ancient dragons and the spirits of the lost world knelt before him, proclaiming the beginning of a new era led by a dragon who carried within his heart the awareness of fire and the tenderness of his soul.
Lian and the library that never closes. So listen closely and let your heart wander. In a city that sleeps to the hum of the marketplace and wakes to the rush of wheels, there lived a girl named Lian. She wasn't loud, nor was she known to speak often, but she read more than she slept and asked more than she answered. Lian worked at an old library beside a forgotten school, where the books smelled of dust and time, and silence lingered like a forgotten melody. One morning, as she was sweeping the western corner of the building, a breeze crept in through a window that hadn't been opened in years. From it, a yellowed piece of paper fluttered down. Written in faded ink were the words, "To the one who never sleeps without asking, our door opens only once. The Library of Trace, behind the 4th Market Gate, when shadows disappear." Lian read it again and again. Then she hid it in an old book and kept it close. From that day on, she began waiting for the moment when shadows would vanish.
Then one strange evening, she noticed it. Her shadow was gone. The trees no longer cast theirs. The buildings, once heavy with dusk, now stood bare, as if light had forgotten how to fall. She remembered the message and ran. The fourth market gate, an old iron door that was always shut after sunset, stood open. Behind it, there was no street, no alley. Instead, a staircase made of letters and light rose into the unknown. She placed one foot on the first step. It glowed, then the second, then the third. And with each step, a whisper echoed in her mind. Every step is a question. Every ascent is an answer.
At the top, Lian found herself inside a vast circular hall. The walls were made of paper, the ceiling of light, and the air smelt like forgotten ink. In the center stood a massive book on a pedestal of silence. She opened it. Its title, The Book of the Unborn. The pages were blank, but slowly words began to appear. Her thoughts, her silent questions, memories she had never voiced. Then an old man with no visible eyes approached. He said nothing, but pointed to two doors behind her. One was golden and read, "Knowledge that pleases everyone." The other, made of clay, read, "Knowledge that disturbs you." Lian hesitated. Then she chose the clay door.
Inside, there were no books, no shelves, just a mirror. But the mirror did not reflect her face. Instead, it showed everything she had buried. The times she remained silent when she knew the truth, the thoughts she dismissed to fit in, the questions she feared to ask. She wept, but she did not turn away. And when she stood tall before her reflection, the mirror disappeared. A third door appeared, one with no name, no inscription, just a soft breeze calling her forward. She awoke the next morning in her bed, under the same roof, with the same books around her. Had it all been a dream? She reached for a familiar book, one she had read many times, and found a page she had never seen before. It was in her own handwriting, a thought she had once kept to herself, now written, clear and real. Then she knew. The library of Trace was not above the clouds nor below the earth. It had always been inside her, waiting for her to ask honestly. The key to the unopenable door. In a distant village at the edge of the mountains, there was a very old house, a house with a huge black wooden door, on which was a strange lock unlike any other. Whenever someone passed by that door, they wondered, what's behind it, and why does it never open? People tried everything. They knocked on the door. They looked for the key. They tried to break it, but the door remained closed, quiet, mysterious. One day, a little boy came from the village. His name was Nadim. Nadim wasn't strong. He wasn't a scholar. He wasn't a magician. But he had something else. He asked a lot of questions. He said to his mother, "Why are we trying to force the door open? Maybe it needs something other than a key."
His mother smiled and shook her head without answering. The next night, Nadim went to the door. He sat in front of it, put his ear to it. He asked, "Door, why don't you open it? What do you need?" The door didn't answer him. But suddenly, a small dot of light appeared near the lock. Nadim approached it and found a word engraved there that no one had noticed before. It said, "My key is the one who knows who asks, not who owns." Nadim was surprised and said, "So it's not an iron key, it's a question." Nadim thought for a long time, then said calmly, "Can you open it?
if I promise not to harm what's behind you? A long silence. Then suddenly, the lock moved for the first time. It turned slowly, and the door opened quietly. Behind the door, there were no treasures, no magic, and no monsters. Rather, there was a narrow, illuminated path leading to a peaceful green garden full of trees and birds. A sign appeared on which was written, "He who does not ask will not see, and he who searches with his eyes alone will find nothing." And so he opened the door not by force nor by keys, but with curiosity, wisdom, and a desire to understand. From that day on, Nadim became the door's guardian. He did not deny it to anyone, but he did not allow it to be open to anyone who did not ask sincerely. Perhaps in our lives there are many doors like this one. Will we ever be like Nadim? Will we ask, or will we stand at the door and leave until we meet again in a new story? And so our story ends. But stories never end. They live on in the hearts of those who love to listen and are adept at imagining. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the journey, take it with you and share it with those you love. We'll see you in a new episode with a new story. Until then, be kind, be curious, and don't stop asking questions. Goodbye.
In the old city of Baghdad, the streets were teeming with color and life. A young man whose eyes sparkled with curiosity and a love of adventure, Sinbad met with his closest friends, Hassan the wise, Layla the brave, and Samir the skilled navigator. They sat together in a warm room, planning a trip to a legendary island said to be filled with treasures and wonders. The friends determinedly prepared their ship as the sun rose. Sinbad carried the ropes, Hassan checked the maps, Layla sharpened her sword, and Samir checked the navigational instruments. As the sun rose, the ship set sail. The friends stood on its deck, waving goodbye to Baghdad, excitement filling their faces as the city receded from view. But soon a violent storm arose. The waves crashed and the wind howled. After the storm subsided, a lush island appeared on the horizon. They reached the shore and entered a dense and mysterious forest. The friends stared at the glittering gate. The friends entered the heart of the island through the glittering gate, amazed as they explored the unknown. Inside, they encountered the mysterious and moving traps. Sinbad focused on solving puzzles and examining the beauty of ancient symbols. Suddenly, they were attacked by mischievous little monsters. Layla fought bravely, and finally they entered a great hall overflowing with gold and jewels. Their faces lit up with wonder and joy. As they gazed at the treasure, each friend took a jewel as a keepsake, and they laughed together as they left the hall and returned to their ship. The ship sailed back to Baghdad at sunset. The friends stood on its deck. When they returned to Baghdad, they walked through the streets. They were wiser and more confident than before, carrying in their hearts the memory of their adventure and ready for whatever new journey lay ahead. In the heart of the desert at sunset, Meow was wandering alone among the sands. Suddenly, he spotted a small child sitting on a rock in a huge sandstorm rapidly approaching.
Before Meow reached the child, the storm covered him for a brief moment. Then he disappeared completely, leaving only footprints that the wind quickly wiped away.
Through the dust, Meow glimpsed a long shadow moving across a distant dune. A human shadow, but longer than normal. Sensing danger, he ran toward it. Meow reached the top of the dune. No one, but he found a small child's toy. As soon as he touched it, he heard a voice behind him say, "Don't touch what isn't yours." Meow froze for a moment, staring at the mysterious man. The man took a step forward and said, "The child is fine, but he's entered the world of sand, and only those who understand its signals can leave." Meow looked at the toy in his hand and felt that the real journey had just begun. Meow approached the sand aura, and suddenly the sand split open to reveal a huge gateway glowing with gold. Meow entered the gateway to find himself in a strange world where the sand moved like creatures. And in the middle of the sandy passage, he heard the child crying. A massive sand-clad entity appeared, towering above the child. Meow immediately understood it wasn't evil, but rather protecting the child from a greater danger approaching. A black shadow appeared in the sky. Another sand monster wanted the child. Meow knew then he had to move quickly before the gate closed forever. But the sand-clad entity blocked the monster's path, giving Meow one last chance to escape. The child returned to his family, and Meow watched from afar. There are heroes who don't ask for thanks.